Hello, hello. Giving folks a second to get in. Today is the last day of this week of Civics 101. I'm listening to a song called Listening, which is off of my last record called Lasagna, which you can find on my website, jennjohns.com, jennjohns.com. Hi, Chameleon. How you doing, love? So this is the last day of this week as we talk about bail reform. And this week has been filled with so much love and so much light. It's been such an honor to be in conversation with my sisters, just being badasses and being smart. I'm so grateful that I have people that I can lean on and I can reach out to and call on when it's time, you know. I'm getting a message from Tonya Love. Let's see what she has to say. Oh, here we are. Yay! We got you, sister. Yay! Adjust my camera up. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yay! How are you, girl?
One more day. It's Friday. So Friday.
I know that's right.
Yeah, I got a vote T-shirt on too. Can't see it, but yeah.
I can see it, and I believe I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
Yes, girl. All the things, all the things. I know you have been hard at work. I know you are doing the most. So thank you again for taking the time to be willing to have conversation with me at all and helping at all. It means a lot to me. So much, so much.
This is like the favorite activity of my life, just to be able to talk and debate propositions. And
yes.
So I'm happy to do it. So.
Yay.
Thank
That's
you.
what's up. Awesome. Okay, well, before we get moving, because I jump in and I have a tendency to be like, Tonya knows everything and everyone knows Tonya. And so they know that she knows everything. But that may not be the case for everyone. So we should probably tell them who you are.
So my name is Tonya Love. For those who don't know me, I'm a 20-year plus resident of Oakland. I have previously worked with state elected officials. I used to work for Assembly Member Rob Bonta until recently, and he represents Oakland, Alameda, and San Leandro in the California State Assembly. But I've been watching Oakland politics since 2009. And watching in the sense that I watch city council meetings and I talk about them on social media, either live tweeting or on my Facebook page. I used to have a blog that I don't actually blog as much anymore. And then I have experience working with organizations that want to be more involved locally. Previously, before working for the Assembly member, I worked for a nonprofit org that worked with parents of young children and getting them engaged in changing their health environment so that the kids have less risk of incidents of pediatric obesity. So I have, like, I guess over 10 years experience working in local government or advocating with parents about local government and just talking about it with community. And so I'm just super wonky. I like to learn about, what decisions are being made on behalf of the community by elected officials. And I want people as well to be just as engaged as I am. I think you should do more than just vote for a person running for office. I think we need to pay attention to the day-to-day decisions, such as, what potholes are going to be fixed on what street, or how much of the city budget, which is our tax dollars, by the way, how much of the budget is going towards one department versus the next. I think stuff like that is super important, because when you're looking at your street and you're saying, there's a lot of illegal dumping, why isn't that being fixed?
Right.
Or why is there so many, officer involved shootings? How much does the police department make and get? How come we have people who work for the police department who don't live here? Or how come, our public libraries are closed? Why do the parks don't look as clean in this neighborhood versus that. A lot of that has to do with day-to-day decisions that we don't necessarily pay attention to. And so that's why I try to get people involved.
Well, we are so grateful to have you, and you to be someone who does that on behalf of all of us, because I know that it's not simple, and it will have you ready to shank folks. And so we're grateful that you haven't yet done that, but you know, we understand as well.
I know. I've been like
Also,
ready to shank some folks lately, but
I bet, but it's just not, it's not a good look, at least not right now.
right. Just
You
not a good
know,
look period, but
I like to dub you our town pundit. I think that you are the person that, for Oakland, that many of us trust, that can look at what's going on, has the mental space, the acumen to kind of decipher what we got and help to translate it to us, and communicate with us in a way that we can understand better. And so I've been so grateful this week for you and for Liz to be able to talk to people who make it their business to know what the hell is going on. So, and every time I hang up, I'm like, oh my God. But I feel more empowered because I know that my sisters are doing the good work, and you guys are showing up on behalf of us, you know, when we cannot. And so thank you. So with that said, today we are talking about dun 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 reform.
right. And the funny thing is just like maybe an hour or two ago, the proposition that we're talking about was trending on Twitter. It was there was a big well, we're going to talk about Proposition 25, and that's a bill that would or proposition that would make permanent a shift from using the bail reform system. So for those of you who aren't familiar, when someone is arrested and charged with a crime, they often are held in jail, a county or local jail, until they get trial. And oftentimes a judge would assign a fine, or what we call bail, until the trial happens, because some people are at risk of running away before trial and just not being convicted. And so a judge would assign, let's say, if you commit a misdemeanor, it may assign you $10,000.
Right.
But you can't necessarily afford $10,000. So what will happen is there's this system of, bail bondsmen who have an investment, they have some money, and they say, you know what, if you pay 10%, we'll front you the rest. You have to pay us back if you run away. You just have to pay us back, right? So some people can afford the 10% down, right? So if you get a bail of $10,000, that means you only have to pay $1,000.
Right.
But some people who are low income, maybe they were doing a crime that's related to the fact that they have no money, right? So maybe they broke into a car because they are looking for some money. They get bail, they ain't got money for that either. So they're, stuck. They're stuck in jail. And sometimes your hearing doesn't happen for a long time.
Like a long time.
A long time.
Like a year, 2 years, longer.
So let's just say maybe you did actually have a job, but while you're in jail and you can't afford to get out of jail, you lose that job because you're not going to work.
Right.
Maybe you lose your house because you're not paying rent.
Right.
Maybe other things. You lose custody of your children. All of this can just spiral out of control the longer that you're in jail for bail, because you couldn't afford, the bail. So there have been a lot of people of color, women, men, who have been trapped in this system just for a simple crime, and because they can't afford bail. And this really negatively impacts our community. And you will see a lot of times there are people who are wealthier who get out of jail because they paid a bail. And then sometimes, they don't ever actually go to court. Maybe they actually, the court, charges are dropped, they paid their bail, they're fine. But even if your charges are dropped and you didn't pay your bail, you still have to stay in jail until you pay the bail off. So you could be charged with a crime and you don't actually.
Wait a minute, hold on, because I had another clarify. So say for instance, you steal a sandwich at a store. The charges are dropped because the store owner is like, whatever, right? But you're in jail. You still have to get bailed out? Okay. See, here we are rolling up on another one of these moments where I'm like ready to throw stuff and like all these things. Okay. So there's a few things that are, everything's wrong with it. Just all of it. Just the whole thing is wrong with it. But the other thing, there's so many studies that talk about the impact of what happens once you go into a prison system, the psychological impacts that happen once you go into the system. So it's not uncommon for someone to get arrested for one thing, go into jail for one thing, and then they wind up getting into a fight with a skinhead or some, inner gang, something didn't have nothing to do with you or whatever that thing is. And now you're managing all of these other things. And now you're traumatized, right? Because you went in trying to survive. And now you're in this space that is more traumatizing. But then to add insult to injury, humans discover that this thing that you did maybe was just connected to your attempt to survive. Charges are dropped and you still are responsible for paying a system that has you set up to not be able to function in the first place.
You know what?
I didn't miss anything, right?
No. Okay. And there's all these, in general, it's very expensive to be low income because of all the different ways that you can be caught up and you can't afford to get yourself out of it.
I think Bernie Sanders says it's expensive to be poor.
It is. It's very expensive to be poor. And I've experienced it in my own life, not necessarily in the criminal justice system, but in the medical system, which I can go into a whole bunch of sidebar conversations. But that's one of the traps of being low income is if you get caught into a system that is costly in the first place, you can be trapped within that system for a very long time just because you weren't set up to be able to navigate it in the first place.
So even before we hit what the proposition is and all of those things, even before we get to all of that stuff, I want to talk about the
I like someone named Zornby said late fees.
Yes. Zornby is the jam. At another time, we'll do a Zoom with Zornby and y'all be like, whoa! That's the homie. This is why it's important to be civically engaged, not just because these are the propositions that are out there, but because you need to know who your attorney general is. You need to know who the judges are. You need to know who your city council people are. Your mayor has got to be hiring a police force that is worthy of your time and energy, right? Like you can't be, we cannot afford to sit out. Obviously, we have a whole generation, multiple generations of people who are a part of the slave system. In California, throughout the country, we have private prisons, right? But this is how we build up a slave system. Like America, I think maybe was without slavery for a total of 60 years, maybe, right? And with the advent of the 13th Amendment, this idea that you cannot own or have any slaves unless in the case of crime, right? And so then we criminalize, and here we are, right? So this young person rolls into a store, steals a sandwich because they can't eat, or breaks into a car.
What about those who it's not even someone necessarily committing a crime in the traditional sense? Right now there's also this movement of removing police from schools. What about students who, you know, may pick a fight with their classmate, and you have the teacher or you have an administrative system that's like, okay, no chances for you. I'm calling the police. You're going to jail. And the parents can't afford
Bail.
if that child is treated as an adult. Let's say that they're, you know, 16, 17, 18, and they did something that puts them into the system in that way, you know. So again, there's so many different ways that a person can end up in the criminal justice system and then be caught up. And because of the first thing that you think about is, okay, I'm going to jail, let me just pay bail so I can go home tonight and figure out how to deal with this trial, but you can't afford the bail. And so you're stuck in jail. And there's all these consequences for you being in jail for a long time while you're awaiting trial. It's pretty harsh.
I mean, it's just inhumane.
Mm-hmm.
It's inhumane. So let's just talk about Proposition 25. And if you're watching this right now, just joining us, we're in conversation right now with Tonya Love, our town pundit, this woman who gives her life and energy to understand the things that maybe we don't completely understand around civics. And we're talking about Proposition 25, which is about bail reform. So what does the proposition say?
So I even have to backtrack, because what this proposition is doing is actually upholding a law that was already passed. So, like I said, I used to work for Assembly Member Rob Bonta. He actually was a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And so he understood the bail system, and he felt it was very unfair. So he and another senator in Southern California decided to do a bill that would get rid of the money bail system. And they actually passed it, and it was signed by the governor in 2018. Mm-hmm. However, the bail bonds industry was like, oh, this can't happen. This would totally disrupt our economy, our ability to make a living, and we can't have you do away with this bail system.
We have to think, people have to think about who all benefits from the imprisonment of Black bodies, and then not wonder any longer about anti-Blackness.
Right. So, you know, and so they decide, instead of following the law and trying to figure out how to deal with the law, they said, no, we're going to take this to the voters. And they gathered a bunch of signatures to make sure that it would be on the ballot for this year. And so what this bill, Proposition 25, would do is asking you whether or not you want to uphold the law that's attempting to get rid of bail reform. so
it's like, wait, hold on. So it's a law that's like, girl, are you sure that's what the law is?
2018. In 2018, a bill that was passed called SB 10. You can look it up.
Yeah.
SB 10 2018, passed and signed by the governor.
Right.
It attempts to get rid of bail reform.
Right.
And what it does is it replaces the mechanism for which bail is assigned. So instead of having a judge saying, okay, you committed this crime, it's worth $10,000. You have to pay this right now to get out of jail while you await trial. The new system is looking at what's called an algorithm.
Okay.
Which would look at the risk of you actually. They look at you and say, okay, this is your risk of actually running away.
Right.
This is the seriousness of the crime.
Right.
Whether or not we feel that you would actually commit it again.
Right.
And they use some sort of algorithm to test whether or not that is the case for you. And based on the algorithm, then the judge can say, you know what, actually, this person's this is their first offense. Right. They're not likely to commit the crime again. They're not likely to run away and not go to trial. So I'm not going to assign them bail. They can just hang out at home until the trial happens. So that was the intent of SB 10, is to use this algorithm.
Why is there bail in the first fucking place though? Like how is it that our system is set up such that we're like, cool, you're gonna commit a crime, I'm gonna get 10 racks? And
I think bail was probably intended to kind of pay the cost of court system, to pay for the upkeep of jails, to pay for, you know, all of that involved in the criminal justice system, a revenue generator. But at the same time, some of these bail assignments are just really astronomical, right? I mean, $10,000 for a break-in of a car, or, you know, or something.
When the car was probably not worth $10,000.
Maybe, yeah, maybe or maybe not. But it's intended to be a revenue generator, but it's also intended to prevent you from running away or doing it again, you know, that kind of stuff. So the risk assessment algorithm would replace the current bail system.
And who creates the algorithm?
It's an algorithm that has been created, that people have, I mean, other states have already implemented this system. But the problem is that the risk assessment algorithm uses data, current data, on whether or not someone's likely to commit a crime.
But is it based on the person, or is it based on a person like you? Like, is it based on, this is where you're from, this is da da da?
Basically, it's data that reflects what, you know, current trends in crime and current.
No, that's problematic too. Yes, Lord, the algorithm is biased. No,
it is so right. It reflects, you know, it basically it reflects racial, ethnic disparities when it comes to policing, charging of crimes in judicial systems. And it's the judge that looks at the algorithm and makes the final decision.
And like Diara says, we're already over policed, right? So the data is already high. I did an interview with, I was hired to interview a engineer from Oracle, around artificial intelligence. And we were talking, and I said, you know, and I was surprised that they hired me to do it, because I'm Black and I'm from Oakland. And so I'm gonna ask the questions, right? And I said, well, why should I think that it's a good idea to have this level of surveillance, right? And, you know, where I come from, I'm from Oakland. I'm, you know, a child of the Panther generation, right? Like, how should I feel about this? And what she said was, number one, stop engaging in the things you don't want to see, because it's feeding the algorithms, right? So like, stop clicking on the videos that, as much as we love D.L. Hughley and all this, that D.L. Hughley's sharing, where everyone's dying all the time. Because what it's telling the algorithms is that that's what we like, right? Is that we engage in it, so it's the thing that we like to see, right? And the other thing is, begin to ask the computer, ask questions of the system that you really want to see. Something like, how can I feed my entire community? And because as a Black woman, you're asking that question, data associated with the ideas that you have are then collected, and they impact things like this. So this woman told me that in 10 years, there's going to be AI will be deciding who gets home loans, right? And that right now we're in what is called machine learning. So it is up to us, as we vote for things like this and have conversations around things like this, that we're speaking of it from a perspective of liberation, a perspective of freedom, and all of those things, but also that we're like, we must, like, Haven is connected with a nonprofit, and fortunately we have a little bit more leeway than we thought. So I'm just gonna go ahead and express, we must make sure that we show up around this, because my God, like.
So here's the thing, when you have to decide when it comes to this proposition. One, is the bail system so problematic right now?
Yeah.
That we have to do something about it right now.
Yeah.
And uphold the law that has been passed. Or if the system that they used to replace the bail system is too problematic to uphold this law, and then they need to start all over again.
So if we decide we got to start all over again, that is voting no.
Yes.
So if we vote no, then how do we ensure that the bail reform ever happens?
That's the thing. So
So is this one of those like lesser of two evil options?
Yes, it
The
is.
shit of both.
It shouldn't happen that way, but given that, you know, when you're talking about get rid of a whole system, and someone saying, okay, if we do get rid of this bail system, then that's just going to increase crime. If you let people go, then they're just going to continue to keep doing whatever that they were doing that they were arrested for. And
or you could just defund the fucking police and invoice the. Sorry.
And so
Sorry, I'm gonna hug my little love pillow right now.
Right.
I'm a little upset.
In this society, you can't just get rid of something. You have to say, okay, let's adjust it in some way, right? Okay. That was the only way that even looking at bail reform would have passed. And so when they are saying, okay, instead of just getting rid of money bail, let's use a whole other system to look at how to deal with this crime. And they landed on a risk assessment algorithm, which actually turns out to be almost as racist as the previous system.
At least as racist.
At least as racist.
It's
but you're at least with this SB 10 currently, you're chipping away at a system that's super bad.
Okay. Now, so
and if you do that, if you say yes, then there's still a possibility that this risk assessment system can be improved.
Okay, adjusted. Okay, so say we vote yes. Say right. It passes, right? Then you got these racist tech motherfuckers, right? We got all the algorithms. They don't even know that they're that racist, but that's a whole other conversation.
At this point, I think we're at a point where so many people are talking about risk assessment algorithms and how problematic they are.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that there is a movement right now to figure out how to fix it.
Okay. So say we pass this. What I want to get at is, okay, it's a step in theory in the right direction. In theory, it's a step in theory in the right direction. Let's just say that we're rocking with that. How are we to engage after this?
So then what you would do is you would go to the authors of those bills, which is person who is currently representing Oakland, Alameda, and San Leandro, and say, you've passed SB 10. You now need to fix it. What are we going to do to fix it? Push them to make sure that it's fixed.
Do we have any guarantees that we can do that? Like, is it something that is going to come back up for a vote at another time? Like, is there some way that we can? Okay.
I believe that he's currently working on figuring out how to fix it, how to tweak the bill, all that good stuff.
Who is this?
Assembly Member Bonta.
Okay.
Rob Bonta. He represents Oakland, Alameda, and San Leandro.
Awesome. Okay.
You could actually, contact him and say, okay, what are you doing to fix SB 10 right now? You can demand that answer from him right now.
I think we should.
If you say no, then it's up to us to continue to go to the legislature and say, we said no to SB 10, but we need bail reform to be fixed. So let's start over. Let's really think about this, and let's really figure out some solutions to bring SB 10 back.
And how long is Bonta still in office?
He's still in office until 2024.
Okay. So if we decided that we were going to vote yes for Bonta, we would then need to be really clear that we have people. We need to go find some money for Tonya to go. Tonya and Liz, can somebody set up a GoFundMe so that we can hire Tonya and Liz to stay on Bonta's ass, amongst other things, right? Yeah. I want to know for sure, if I were to put myself in the position to say yes, right, to this, that because I know that algorithms are set up such that they're not in my favor as it stands right now. I mean, like, you can even just look at your social media. You're not hearing anything new, We are speaking to our own community, the same people, the same few hundred to few thousand people who are going to watch any of these videos. It's the same homies.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so you can have people like me do it, but I can tell you there are already people who are looking at this bill really closely. So, I mean, SB 10 almost did not pass because social justice organizations were like, wait a minute, risk assessments, this is not going to work. And these are the ones who are actually against Prop 225, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have like ACLU, you have other social justice, criminal justice organizations that are saying, you know, risk assessments right now are just too problematic. And we shouldn't even say yes right now. We should just start all over
again.
So there's some people who believe that, you know, we need to start all over.
So who is in opposition and who's in support?
Right. So here's something else to consider.
Okay.
One of the biggest organizations that are in opposition to Prop 25 is the state NAACP, Alice Huffman. Now, I need you all to really consider this because there's now updates that Alice Huffman is getting paid to be against some things that are actually in the best interest of people of color. Mm-hmm. She's been against housing tenant protections. She's against Prop 25. She's against health bills that reduces the consumption of tobacco. She hasn't even spoken up in support of Prop 16, which would be to repeal Prop 209, which ended affirmative action. So there are actually a lot of people in that African American community that are looking at her with a big side eye because they're like, how come you are financially benefiting by being against actual laws that will help our community?
This is why we're going to get money. See, Ryan's on here. Ryan's good at this. Ryan, this is what we gonna do, girl. This is what we gonna do. We're gonna create a whole new show. Right. And we're going to hire Tonya and Liz. And on a regular basis, like weekly, they're gonna tell us what's going on. Because we need people that we can trust.
And then anyone you can Google calmatters.org. I know someone said that they liked Cal Matters. They actually did an article talking about Alice Huffman and the state NAACP. And there's actually going to be, you know, some actions happening pretty soon talking about it. She's against Prop 15.
Okay, so there's... Yes. Well, see, look, everyone's saying yes. Look at that. Sometimes I know what the hell I'm talking about. Ryan says yes. Liz says yes. Yes.
So there's lots of nuance in all these decisions. You know, you can't just take an endorsement at face value. If anything, I tell people, one, and I actually did a live stream about local propositions, and we were talking about IEs, independent expenditures, which are committees that get together and they communicate their support or their opposition to bills and legislation and candidates. And so an independent expenditure example would be Lyft and Uber coming out for, you know, Prop 23, or you would have,
it's Prop 23. I thought it was Prop 22.
22, yes. Okay. And not only are they doing it for this proposition, they actually put in a bunch of money in our local city council race because they don't like a city council person that wants to tax them. So there's all these things to consider. Is when you get literature in the mail, it's really important you look at who that literature comes from and who's paying for it. And because of federal and state laws, they have to be really transparent about it. And so, and even in commercial ads, you'll get this 30-second commercial ad, and then at the bottom, pay for by blah, 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 blah. You know,
that's the part. It's kind of like how they do the medical commercials, and they're like, your ass is going to leak after this.
You know, by the way, you know, you should take this drug, but you could get cancer, heart attacks, blah, blah, blah.
Right, exactly.
but buy this medication.
But it's good for you. It's good for you. Trust me.
It's good
Trust
for
me.
you. Do it. Do it.
Do it.
So the same thing when you see campaign ads.
Yeah.
Be really mindful who's paying for it, who's
Yeah.
for and who's against, and weigh your decisions in that way. Don't just take the message at face value. Look at who's giving you that message and why.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this is why I vote for you being our town pundit. And I'm here for it. I'm totally here for it. I spoke it into existence. I usually get what I want, so it's fine. And I'm so grateful for you because seriously, I mean, I remember when Sarah Tiffany connected us and she said, this is the person that you want to talk to. She really does put her heart and her life into it. And you are one of those people who's not swayed by the glitz and the whatever of politics. You're definitely somebody I can trust to be honest with me about what it is that's going on. Yes. DRS says, Tonya and Liz for the people. Yes. We are so grateful. So if you are just tuning in, again, we have just been talking about Proposition 25. Good job. Proposition 25. It's about bail reform. As with everything that we have talked about this week, this requires some deeper thought. This requires some investigation. And, you know, I believe that we all need to be more civically engaged. Do your job to ask your questions. And if you have questions that you think that maybe we can answer, we're happy to answer them. And as I say all of the time, I'll try, but chances are I don't really know the best answer. I'm going to ask Tonya. I'm going to ask Liz. And so follow them because they are, even without a platform that we have beautifully built for them and created a marketing plan and all of that stuff just yet. We haven't gotten there yet. In the meantime, already they both Tonya and Liz are consistently sharing information that is worth following and knowing about. And so please, if DRS, if you could drop their handles in the comments, that would be awesome. In addition, please follow Haven. Haven is a beautiful project, a brainchild of my sister, Ryan Nicole, who I believe is still on here. Ryan Nicole created this space so that we can have a clearinghouse, a space where we're talking about what it means to live in Oakland justly. And so thank you to Ryan Nicole for that work, but please definitely follow Haven. It is _1 Haven _. And you can always follow me at Aquarius Johns. Go to my website, jennjohns.com. And Monday is the last day that you can register to vote online. That doesn't mean that you can't go in and get a provisional ballot. It doesn't mean that you can't still vote. It just means it's the last time that you can vote online. So if you have not registered to vote online, if you have not followed or gone to do such a thing, do it with your life because your life absolutely depends on it. Like pronto disco right fucking now. And you can do that at the F.U.N Manifesto, which is my project. It is the birthplace for Civics 101, thefunmanifesto.com, 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 where we have a lot of fun, but we also do some cool civic shit.
What was that? Funmanifesto.com?
3 times fast. Wait, 3 times fast.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. I have to get back to my day job.
Change the world, girl. Thank you, guys. Peace.